As agricultural zones shift, affecting global crop output, but very few mainstream media outlets are talking about the most important issue of our time: cold weather crop losses. Our sun is going through a 400-year cycle, which has effects on our weather patterns as our magnetosphere weakens and the jet streams go out of flow. It's not CO2, it's not you, it's the sun. Are you ready to thrive in the grand solar minimum? Then join me for mini Ice Age conversations. I'm your host, David DuByne, creator of the Adapt 2030 Mini Ice Age 2015 to 2035 video series. And I welcome you this evening, wherever you reside on this beautiful blue planet. Take another breath. Give thanks that we get to experience the changes that are happening right now. Some might look at it as terrifying. Others embrace it. How many emotions do you think are being activated and in play right now as we're going through every single day with the next news headline and the next I have with me tonight Craig Simpson from Radiant Creators. We're going to talk all things crypto, and Americans must cut energy use by 90%, live in 640 square feet, and fly once every 3 years to stay compliant with the new terms of the climate policies. Seems like we're being directed down that road. So anyway, how can you protect yourself from that sort of thing? Because it all does look like we're being squeezed down. We're going back to serfdom. But how about the Bitcoin citadels? I wanted to talk about the island in Vanuatu also, where you can buy NFTs to get land and property. But see, here's the way I'm going to frame it is, forget the NFT. It's becoming a Bitcoin citadel, which was talked about when the time traveler had been referencing the different prices of Bitcoin moving through years, and it had been on target. But one of the things that was mentioned was these Bitcoin citadels, that even somebody who had a third of a Bitcoin or something like that, or even 0.003, had enough money to get into these private zones where you could live the rest of your life like royalty and opulence, 5-star living for the rest of your life for like 0.3 of a Bitcoin or something in the new Bitcoin citadels. So Craig, welcome. I know we're going to have a chance to chat here and catch up on a lot of things. What are you seeing across your landscape over there?
Well, so far, Phoenix, Arizona is not a Bitcoin citadel, but I would like to see that. And I definitely think that crypto is in a unique place right now. We have a lot of market volatility, but that's the thing. We have a lot of, world market volatility. And all in all, it's not doing too bad. If you just look at Bitcoin, it's ranging sideways. The whales do have control of it right now, and when it ranges sideways between a certain low and a high, the whales are just buying and selling, and they're making money. And many people kind of consider that to be consolidation, but it's really not consolidation, and it isn't necessarily even whales collecting. It's just whales making money. The one thing is, if you think like a whale, you can get in and out of Bitcoin, and you can make a little bit of extra, Bitcoin for yourself. And the nice thing about that is, if you have faith in it going up, if you do, blow a trade, if it ends up going the wrong way, as long as you're not playing with your whole stash, you can just sit in it and wait for it to be profitable again. So lately, that's kind of been my trading strategy. Is I'm just and I do my little Bitcoin daily view almost every day, and I kind of show people what's going on. And if you just play the Bitcoin range, you can slowly acquire some extra sats, but it definitely takes a bit of effort. For those who are not traders, who are not interested in that, I can't give you financial advice, but I can tell you something that I do. If you have any interest in crypto at all, but it's just a little bit elusive, there's a bit of an education gap there, but you do feel like it might be a great way to hedge against global fiat uncertainty, then just dollar cost average, as they say. If it's $20 for you, or $5, or 50, or 100, just go to Coinbase, make an account, set an auto buy every week, and just set and forget. And that is a great way for the non-trader to begin truly accumulating some wealth. I've been doing that for years now, and I'm doing just fine for myself doing that alone. Even though sometimes you're buying it in a downwards market, it's okay. You just whatever you can afford weekly that doesn't really stress you out too much. Even $50 a week, just put that purchase in, and you're going to find that give it a couple years, and you're going to be absolutely astonished at the wealth you might accrue doing that. So no guarantees, but that is a way that people who just they got other things to do, but they want to get into crypto. They do want to hedge against, like I say, fiat uncertainty. There you go. Set and forget dollar cost average, weekly buy Bitcoin on Fridays, traditionally the cheapest day, and then just don't look at it. Yeah, but my landscape, I'll tell you what's going on right now. It's kind of crazy. Is looking at the food stores here in Phoenix. The last couple of days, really, really been noticing. Going to the food stores, the both your smaller one, I said like your, I don't want to name them specifically, but different types of grocery stores. From posh ones to cheap ones, and I could just say everything from Whole Foods to Trader Joe's to Safeway to Sprouts out here. The produce, a lot of it really looks like ass. You can usually find something that's doing all right, but you may not be able to get what you want. And one thing I've really noticed is onions are looking tragic. I mean, they have onions out that they shouldn't even have. There are apples, but they're like $3 a pound. And so really, we are seeing the shelves in the supermarkets definitely get more and more stretched. And I would say the last week, there's been an absolute, you cannot miss it, hit to the produce that's on the shelves. And maybe that's just because of the holiday, but like things tend to shut down during Easter, kind of. But hey, everybody, if you're prepper minded, which you probably are, be sure to be stocking up on the things that you enjoy, not just that long term stuff, but also, hey, don't forget your Ezekiel bread and your tahini and your avocados, because go to the store, get yourself a little bit of a pile, because what I'm noticing is the next time you go to the store, that kind of like your perishables, the produce and groceries you buy that aren't long-term storage, chips and stuff like that. Really, it's there this week. I go back to like 3 days later, it's not there. I go back 9 days later, and it's still not there. And something else that seeing out here is cat and dog food, especially cat food, but dog food too. You walk into uh, one of the big pet stores like Petco or something like that, and it looks like it's been looted. I mean, I've never seen anything like it. My cat's had to learn to eat food that it doesn't like, and that, as you know, can be a struggle. So anyway, that's what's happening right around me right now. And I made a little list of plenty of topics, so we are good for tonight. So how are things going over there for you?
Yeah, I'm curious, in the comment box too, if we could look at people and what their stories are in the different stores of what's going lean right now. It's happening everywhere on the planet. And Neil McCoy Ward, he's a guy I follow, and he's in the UK. And he said that he was jogging just yesterday or today and went over some farmer's field because he was going a different direction, but needed to cut across his field to get back to the trail on the other side. Anyway, the farmer was there, and I started talking to him for a minute. And what's happening in the UK is the same thing. They're just not, they don't have the fertilizers, and the prices are going to continue to go up another 50%. And it's that oldest of the produce that they keep putting out on the shelves because it's taken so long in the supply chain to get there. When they picked that onion, it was actually not even ripe yet or at the mature stage, because they were hoping that as it transited from a field through a truck to the supermarket, it would have ripened during that journey. So think about what you got or what you saw there. That's something that's been stuck in a truck for 3, 4, 6 weeks
It's ready to be
somewhere, just in the
planted.
heat or whatever.
Yeah.
And when it comes into summertime, I imagine a lot of those trucks won't have the reefer units, which is a refrigerated container unit. The reefers won't be operational with no fuel in them. So you can probably find a lot of rotted stuff laying around. But for right now, because it was winter, I think they were able to get away with it a little bit more than I do think these next 4 months will allow. But think about how you're gonna have to grow some of your own food. So what are people's spaces looking like? How much space do you have there, Craig, for growing food?
Oh, I would say only about a traditional backyard, so not a whole lot where we are at. But here there's, well, of course, pepper, and got the dry goods, but also quite the hydroponic and microgreen setup, and just because of the situation here, unless we escape and go live rural, which is definitely in the works, but we would be growing more so than a backyard garden, which does exist. Um, Really, here in Arizona, in the Sonoran Desert, hydroponics and microgreens are that's our staple for green stuff, you know. But it that's one of the challenges with depending on where a person lives is that here in Arizona in the desert. It's especially with the UV right now, we're getting, high UV, way higher than we should. The sun's intensity, it's burning the cactuses. So
What?
yeah, oh yeah, it's
Wait
burning
a second. Excuse me again.
yeah.
The sun is burning the cactus.
Yeah, you'll see some cactuses can't quite handle it. Um, there's a couple of things that happens. One is like with the
Shoot.
saguaros on the ground, if the ground near them gets too hot, it kind of like cooks the bottom. And you'll see that like the bottoms get brown, and you'll see that a lot. And then not as much with the saguaros, but the cactuses that don't have spikes, you'll see those burning on top. And yeah, so you're actually seeing the sun damaging the saguaros and the sun damaging. I forget the cactus name, but cactuses that aren't that don't have as many spikes, little needles. So yeah, it's doing its damage there. So when it starts getting to be a challenging time for cactus to grow in the desert, you can imagine that your spinach is not going to do too well either. So the plan here is mostly hydroponics and microgreens, but as you can grow a lot of hydroponics and microgreens inside. So
Yeah, we're just getting our first 3 trays of the microgreens on natural temperature in the garage again. Because coming out of here, excuse the dog, we have a couple guard dogs here. Uh, the that was our dog signaling to the other one, so they have their own code barking back and forth there. But I got 3 trays of microgreens going on right now. I just put them out because it was too cold to get them in the garage. And see, here's another thing you might want to think about. If you're going to try to do any kind of agriculture in your like non-insulated garage area, because a lot of people don't have the insulation in the garage, they have it for the rest of the house or whatnot, but not the garage. In the attic, yeah. So coming back to natural temperatures where those microgreens can even sprout out, even though they're in an area. So I was talking to Ted Marchildon. He's got the Omega
yeah,
rotary grow system, and I was trying to put that out in the garage during the winter time, and we could never keep the temperature. So I had to get some special foiling to make a small encapsulated room for it in itself. And yeah, we got 3 trays of microgreens. We got the radishes, the beets, and then black-eyed peas, one of my favorites, right along with.
yes.
And we didn't do this time, but the sunflowers. So
Oh,
black-eyed peas,
sunflowers.
you can pick those up for $1 or $2 a pound, and super amazing. They're almost equivalent with the sunflowers.
Yeah, sunflowers are great. They're really tasty microgreens. Also, buckwheat microgreens really good. And so if you want to get also as far as the hydroponics, I mean, I love growing lettuce and Claytonia, miner's lettuce, and you can do dandelion greens. You can do mustards. I mean, mustard is really fun to grow. That it is like eating fire if you get some good microgreens. Not microgreens, but hydroponics. Good doing mustard. I mean, it is wonderful. So yeah, right now it's pretty much a hydroponic and microgreen world. But for people who might feel discouraged, who don't have the outdoor area, you can be amazed how much microgreens you can grow. And the thing is, you can go to Home Depot or somewhere and just get a bag of soil. preferably organic, of course, but whatever you can get a hold of. You only need about like an eighth inch, quarter of an inch on the bottom of a tray. Sprinkle your seeds. And the thing about microgreens is if you put them by a window, you're probably fine as far as light. If you want to use extra lighting to make them grow faster, you don't need much at all. Any daylight bulb is going to be good enough. I don't even bother with any lighting here in Arizona. We just put it near a window. And big trays can get in the way for some people, but something I have found that really is working great is, little plastic boxes, like plastic containers that lettuce greens come in sometimes. It's like it's just a
Yeah,
small
I do.
yeah.
I've used just regular round flower pots before and got like a mini batch out of those.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. So you can, we found that making, growing more like different types of microgreens, growing more of a variety in smaller trays was working better. And if you go to the supermarket and you see the greens, the lettuce, the romaine, the spinach, those plastic boxes that they come in, those you store away the top and they make the best little microgreen growing medium. They're just kind of perfect. They're the right size. You can get them in different sizes depending on what you want, and that's been very effective because even that can be prohibitive to people because trays cost a little bit of money, but those plastic salad boxes, I call them. I mean, you're buying them anyway. So you're gonna have them on hand, and yeah, people can definitely get creative in what they grow. Their microgreens in. So yeah, get creative. Don't think you're stuck to just the standard tray size because that oftentimes doesn't really work for people.
Yeah, I've grown it in boxes before. If you cut
Mm.
off the top 2 inches of a cardboard box on the bottom and you only keep that top 2 inches, you'll get two of those sections. You get the top of the box and the bottom of the box. So then
Mm.
you got two grow trays right there, and the same thing. Then what's good about those is if you already have a plant to play a space to plant them, after you cut it, there's going to be a couple, two, three, four seeds in there that'll emerge a little bit later than the other ones. And if you can plant that whole box in the dirt, then you got a couple little starters there, or you can compost it because the cardboard is going to decompose right along with all the soil and the roots in there. So, I mean, it's literally one of the best disposables that you could get is just use a simple box. Now, obviously, be careful of the inks and things because that's going to seep out and go in your body, but you just have a regular cardboard box with no inks on it.
Yeah, definitely. And you can get, yeah, like you mentioned, a flower pot works really well. Um, People can, get creative. There's all kinds of stuff that you can find that you'll start looking at things differently. And you know what, people like, don't be afraid to dumpster dive. I mean, if you see that perfect container sticking out of the dumpster, I tell you what, I'm jumping in. Yeah, I will. I'm getting it. Well, one thing about growing, I just wanted to ask you about India. I mean, so right now, there's, of course, we all know there's the Ukrainian-Russian conflict, right? And of course, America's been sending, well, the collective West, but mostly America, has been sending, diplomats to try to intimidate, countries into, hey, you got to say Russia's a bad guy and sanction them and this and that, don't trade with them. Well, that's not so easy for India, and India does not have a bad relationship with Russia per se. And so India is in this hard spot where it's like, okay, so if you trade with Russia, if you buy, fertilizer, if you buy food, then America's going to sanction you. But it's turning out where, a lot of the BRIC nations, India as one of them, is saying, we need Russia more than we need you, America, and you're kind of being a-holes about this because we don't, with the population they have, the needs they have, they just can't, because America wants them to just stop doing trade with Russia. That's going to be famine. That's going to be a disaster, you know? And, you know, I, I wonder what you kind of, if you've been, you know, following it. A big one I see as far as struggle right now is India is having a hard time because of the West leaning on them to basically not do trade with Russia. I mean, in some cases, in some countries, it's a little different. You have like America asking Germany, saying, "Hey, look, why don't you guys just go green? Stop using, fossil fuels. Just, make it a goal." and then stop being a manufacturing nation because like BMWs are bad and all this kind of stuff, and just basically just Germany. If you would just go completely bankrupt, because it would hurt Russia, we think, you know. I mean, it is amazing, along with the grand solar minimum and the issues that we're having. America and the collective West, I guess you could say, talk about exasperating difficult situations as they would be without this conflict. I mean, I feel like India is in an absolutely no-win situation. Don't do trade with Russia, have famine, or do trade with Russia and get sanctioned, which really would damage India to some extent. But you also see the incredible acceleration of all the BRIC nations moving away from the petrodollar, away from the SWIFT systems, because I think that in the last just 2 or 3 months now, especially in the eyes of the BRIC nations, the petrodollar is seen as poison. It can't be trusted. I mean, America even tried to seize Russian assets and such like that. Uh, America talked Finland into trying to seize Russian art that had been lent to them for an art exhibit. I mean, it's insane. So, I love my little country here, but man, we are making a mess out of a situation that would be bad anyway.
Well, I remember when they banned Russian cats from international cat competitions. So
Yeah.
to steal art is just really the next step above that, right?
It is, yeah. And Russian cats are cool. I love Russian, what do they call them, Russian blues or Russian grays. There's these big, cool looking cats. Kind of look like Stalin. Very stoic and psychopathic, but all cats are kind of psychopathic anyway.
Yeah, it's always been through history, has it not? It seems
Hmm.
that the psychopaths the sociopaths are the ones that have, at least if you chart what I would consider modern, last it's 2,000 years going back to the Roman era, maybe prior to the Greek era, Phoenicians, you could take it back, Hittites, keep going, whatever. Chaldeans, 6,000 years prior. But it always seems that the psychopaths are always in charge since then, because it's always been war and about the violence and the overthrows and more power and, creating fiefdoms, kingdoms to battle with others to steal resources or protect from marauders. It seems like that's been the thing for the last, say, 5,000 years. But
Oh, definitely.
I believe it's changing at the moment with the frequency and the interplanetary magnetic field, and this electromagnetism changes from the sun through the earth all the way out past the planets, way out in the Bauschacht. It's all changing. So I feel that this period of that kind of, what you're talking about with the Russian thing and this whole war, I think it's at the end, sort of during this vibratory state where that sort of mind can take over the planet.
Oh, definitely. I see it as a last, as kind of a last,
Ditch effort.
last ditch effort for power, because with the American and ultimately European sanctions on Russia, which is like a G20 country that basically has a commodity based economy, you could say. I mean, they energy and oil and such. So, well, gas and oil. So if you look at the trade, like a ruble versus USD, you can go over Trading View and do RUB USD. So if you basically had bought rubles with USD, and I when I do my little like daily view look at the markets, I look at a daily chart, and initially the ruble crashed, and you had Biden, who definitely got 81 million votes. You got this guy saying, "I crushed the ruble," right? Well, it has regained 75%. It's basically trading before, at levels before this all started, after a quick V-shaped recovery, and now it's like, I think it's 1,500 rubles per ounce, per, what is it, gram of gold or something like that. They've kind of created
Grams,
a
yeah.
standard, yeah. So I mean, I can't say exactly, but they are to a certain extent, making the ruble a gold-backed currency, kinda. And so, the West is just, we are seeing as the ages change. There was something that Ram Dass said. Everybody knows Ram Dass. Everyone, you read Be Here Now, right? So he said that way back in the 60s, he was like, a great challenge coming for America is that it's going to just be another kid on the block. And the challenge for America is it going to be able to deal with that? And I think right now, with this Russia-Ukraine, I basically think like Ukraine is where there's a proxy war between the old school, like neocon globalists and an emerging brick nations. I think the new sun's going to rise in the east unless the Western leaders unless we break out the wood chippers and guillotines, we're effed. So, um, we are
What
seeing this.
model would that be?
The French Revolution, I guess. Um, which model? I'm not sure I
Of the
follow.
chipper. Are you
Yeah,
talking
I know.
industrial size or the backyard kind?
I'm kind of wondering if Caterpillar makes an industrial one. I mean, I want something big. I want like a Caterpillar like D9 kind of size. I want something huge, because there's a lot of people and this might take a while. You know,
So many just dark energy beings that are trying to inhabit and control the planet right now.
there are, and you mentioned the energies coming in, and that's true. I don't know anybody at all who's has a sensitivity, who's aware, who's alive in body, mind, and spirit, who's on their path, who is not challenged right now. As far as you just feel the intensity of the time, we are definitely going through evolutionary leaps, and that's something I kind of was going to mention is here's something people might not do, and I think it might be helpful if people so desire, is follow space weather, because you might notice that as you feel. So the thing is, you can follow the Schumann resonance, real time. You can follow the KP index. You can kind of go to you can just Google Space Weather Prediction
And
Center.
phases of the moon as well. Remember, we were going to try to put
Yes,
together an algorithm to track those on a daily, all three of those factors to try to get your best working time and energy for tasks during the days and weeks and months.
exactly. And I recently found that in TradingView, if you're a trader, if you look at Bitcoin on the daily chart, and then there's one called Moon, I think it's like moon phases. There's an indicator, and it will show you full and new moons. And I'm telling you, Bitcoin on the daily starts dumping every new moon and pumping every full moon. It's like clockwork.
Sounds like money to me.
It is money, yeah. What do they say? Like millionaires, what is it? Billionaires use astrologers or something like that. I
Yeah,
forget.
millionaires use consultants, billionaires use astrologers.
Telling you. Well, there you go. Trading View. Just find the moon phase indicator and look at Bitcoin on the daily, and you could just trade in and out of that, and you'd probably be doing pretty well. So yeah, I mean, I just wanted to mention that people, follow space weather. There's like spaceweather.com. You can Google like Space Weather Prediction Center. There's the Space Weather app, which is in Android and the iPhone store. I mean, there's so much out there, but if you start following space weather, and there's a good number of YouTube channels that actually look at the space weather like every day, and you might notice that you're feeling it. That's the best way to put. Would that make sense? Like I know people now who will say, my ears are ringing. Whenever my ears are ringing, I go and I check, and there's an M-class flare going. Or I mean, I really think that we are getting very, very tuned into our sun and the evolutionary leaps that we've spoken about. I think that there's no way you can miss it. I mean, if you start looking at the what's that? It's called Lasco C2, Lasco C3. I'll try to link, like I'll send, like Dave DuByne already may have them all, but I'll send like
Yeah,
some links to
I
you.
like the SDO satellites because the LASCO C1, C2, but then if you go over to like the SOHO satellites, that's
Yeah,
where they get all those angstrom colors, and combining both those data sets is incredibly helpful to see what's happening behind the sun and in front of the sun, like where we are.
exactly. So yeah, that's something yeah, there you go. There would be a great Adapt 2030 video. Show people the sun stuff that they can see.
Yeah,
And
is
like,
that up?
and
I was over at Radiant Creators and I saw that our interview was right up there on the front. Thank you very
oh,
much. Please head
oh,
over to Radiant Creators, check out the interviews and topics and interesting conversations over there as well.
Yes, thank you, and do that. And this interview will be up. Well, this chat will be up there too. After a little while. Um, so yeah, I don't know how to direct people to these things, but I'll send. You probably got the links anyway, but that'd be a great like Adapt 2030 video. Would be just talking about, hey, here's all the stuff. Here's kind of what it means. Here's the links to it all, because this is really a great time for people to start watching space weather. For one thing, you can get apps on your phone. Just there's a space weather app. You can't miss it. That will send you alerts when there's M-class flares, when there's radio blackouts, when there's X flares, and it will actually show you the space weather that's going on right now. If you just look at it and don't be worried about not understanding it all, just start looking at it, listening to other people that are looking at it, because seriously, if there was, let's say like a big X-class flare that boom was headed towards Earth, and this is like a real one, right? Wouldn't you, I'm telling you, the person who has a couple hours heads up is in a whole different world than the person who's just going to find out when their toaster explodes.
Yeah, right. I would love to have a 5 hour or even 8 hour or 1 day window on that. Man, you'd be running to buy so much stuff.
Yeah,
You could build your Faraday cage in those, 3 or 4 hours that you needed to, if you had the materials there and you're just putting it off until the last minute.
exactly. So yeah, I mean, follow space weather. It's all out there. We'll try to get all the links to you with a little bit of explanation. And here's a wild.
Greg,
Go.
could I
Yeah.
throw can I throw
Yeah.
something out there about electromagnetic
Yes.
changes off the sun and space weather and sort of plasma densities here?
Yeah.
It seems that the governments of the world know these cycles are here, and we're in the onset period. When I just started the research of ADAPT 2030, the period of onset was in this, a couple of years plus or minus a year or so. We were absolutely unequivocally here. I was looking for the sign that the world would get locked down and no immigration would be allowed to happen. And then, because the very following year would be the year for the first food shortages. And, we come the full first lockdown year last year. And then, we're here at the food shortages coming up. But it seems that whenever there's changes in the sun, whatever that is, that does something and ignites human consciousness, amplifies it, something changes where the perception of we as the human species, the race of us, everybody on this planet, humans, Homo sapiens sapiens, the change physiologically or mentally, that then suddenly there's another large distraction to try to push fear into the receptor versus the changes that are being, like you say, sensed by everybody. They can't put their finger on it. But then another fear-based episode comes rolling along, and whatever they were feeling is suddenly overtaken by that fear vibration. And I really believe that it's going lockstep with these changes. And like when you come to the largest distraction, think of it as a series of distractions as the sun's frequency, electromagnetic output, what you're talking about here with the space weather, how many protons are getting blasted at us, electrons, light itself. So it seems that the governments, every time that is enhancing our abilities as a species on this planet, throw out a larger distraction to get you away from even exploring what those signs, feelings, whatever you call them, are, that people are becoming more aware of something's different. And then whoosh, then it's the next thing. Oh, it could be a nuclear weapon. Oh, ooh, it's food shortages now. Whoa, it was the COVID. Whoosh, it's been since the sun's in earnest really started to change its electric field 2 years ago. I mean, notice the amount of distractions up to this point on a global level. And I was up on Coast to Coast AM last night with George Norrie, and I was explaining that back in the year 2020, back in May, Pluto's atmosphere collapsed. And then 6 months later, right around the middle of December in 2020, Neptune's atmosphere reversed itself. The black spot reversed which is the traditional storm pattern. And then 6 months later, coming in 2021, approximately May, a full year after Pluto's thing, then there was X-ray flares that jumped off of Uranus straight onto the rings and then out. And seemed that it was following a current flow, but you could see it without having to use a specialized instrumentation. They could see it with their eyes. And then Jupiter's auroras are 10x. And now we have this whole new update about Neptune cooling, so much faster than anticipated. And then following that, coming in the it was in November of last year, Mars had minerals in its crust that started to glow with your own aurora coming out of them. Because Mars doesn't have poles like North and South as we do here on Earth and many other planets. But the electromagnetic energies were coming out that, see, the field, the plasma going in on that was finding that mineral, which was also a conduit. You know, what do you think our wires are made of? What do you think quartz does? So if you have iron ore or aluminum or silver or gold or any amongst many, many, many metals in the Earth's crust, that's where that electricity would run to. And sure enough, that it was following the magnetic resonance of the mineral deposits and then glowing above them across Mars. And then we sit here right now, and it is our turn coming up in these next few months by May here. And it's the same time that we're coming into the fertilizer shortages, the full herbicide shortages, the business news picking up on all what's not going to be grown, massive millions of videos about famines and food shortages coming in, including mine, because you can see the fertilizer is not going to be there. But that's right now when the changes in the Earth's crust are going to begin to amplify. And there's going to be another uptick in awareness at the same time. But look where they're taking us now, famine. Because, you know, Craig, I'll say something about last week in the news headlines. They moved away from, you know, purchase of one item in the store per trip or whatever, the, you know, purchase limit of one, purchase limit of two. Now they've actually substituted that and used the word rationing for baby formula in Walgreens. So think about the uptick in the use in limit of two purchase in Walgreens for the infant formula to rationing Walgreens infant formula. You know, the perception of the word rationing has suddenly made it into the news, along with a huge amount of just regular everyday news stations picking up on all this food stuff now. It's crazy how it's kind of being targeted and coordinated to, I don't know, cause more shortages because the supply chain can't keep up if there's an absurd amount of buying. I don't know, but I'm seeing that correlation. Ramp ups in solar activity, awareness, and then suddenly even bigger distractions for the full planet. Like a famine on the planet's a pretty damn big distraction. Like what's going on with our abilities that are going to jump exponentially, that they need to pull a famine to try to get you not to rise higher in your vibration. That's crazy, man. That's really insanity right there. That's non-human.
And they're trying to get that famine started before it has to happen, before it would naturally happen. You know what I mean? That's the thing. So you look at a lot of the, sanctions, you look at the whole, I guess you'd say like proxy war between like the dark, the reptilian lizard people and the natural humans on this planet, right? So that proxy war seems to be happening in the Ukraine at the moment. And with all, like say with the sanctions, and this conflict, people are being made to starve. I think I'm kind of worried about India on that one. I think before that famine would naturally happen because of natural cycles, they're causing that famine to start when I think it's still easy to manage. That's kind of one of the things that I'm getting a feeling of like watching a lot of the news and such. It's like if you knew there was going to be a famine, if you knew there was going to be these issues, what if you could just kick it off early while you're still fed, while you're still good, while your military is easy to feed, while your police forces are easy to feed, while your military contractors are easy to feed, while your mercenaries are easy to feed. Basically, while you're still strong, inflict that famine ahead of time. Because when I look at the what the EU is doing, what NATO's doing, what America's doing, when I think about it, if I kind of go out to 30,000 feet and look at it, really more than anything, it's to destroy economies and really, cause famine. Basically, we are in full mayhem mode, so we're accelerating it, definitely accelerating it.
Yeah, let me throw a couple ideas by you on the preparedness part by the government here, government continuity of government preparedness, whatever you like to call it. Now, go back to when COVID began, the stories of shipping containers piled high to the Himalayas across all ports in the world and so many backups inside inland ports and then manufacturing zones. It seemed that there were mountain ranges made of containers at that point, completely across the planet. And even all the ships were just sitting off the dock and they weren't getting unloaded, full of containers also. But then suddenly there was this plethora of containers. I mean, you could have stacked them all to the moon and back of just empty ones laying around, in addition to the full ones on all the transport that was outbound or inbound. And then suddenly, whoosh, they're all gone, where there's a shortage, where they need to manufacture 1.5 million new containers. That'd be 20 foot, 40 foot, 53s. And then where did all those go? You know, from a complete glut of just overspilling across the planet to we don't have enough now. And the same thing with the rails that's happening. And this got me into one of the callers last night on Coast to Coast on the call-in hour after. Started a little agitated that I would say such a thing about rail traffic. That Union Pacific currently has suspended their deliveries of a lot of fertilizers and grains, which has really put out dairy farmers and others. So would it not be the same stretch as Union Pacific was saying they had to turn off their routes or diminish the amount of traffic on their routes because of too much congestion? But then again, suddenly there's a shortage of rail cars across the United States in the Northern Hemisphere. Where did they all go to? And I was saying, you know, the very same thing. If they have 1.5 million containers at least have disappeared for continuity government, they're stocked full of stuff, but they've just been put wherever they are for storage, military bases, underground, whatever. But what about rail cars? You could move way more stuff at that point, you know, heavier base metals, something that maybe is smelted finally into aluminum ingots or whatever, and that's put on the train. But you got a mile-long train of aluminum ingots moving into a storage facility, and then locomotive detaches, and you got all those cars in there, and they're stocked full, I mean, for storage. Because there's this rail car shortage happening. Because see, here's how it breaks down. And I talked to some guys who run grains out to California for their dairy. And California's in a world of hurt with the drought they got right now. So they're out here in Indiana and Ohio to look for corn to send back to California because they can't get it from the Midwest because everything's spoken for and they're in a drought there too. But he was saying the same thing, like all these rail cars have suddenly disappeared. Now, they were like the major railroads in the United States here. We'll stay with Union Pacific, for example. They have the teams and the crews. Like the crew is actually in the locomotive and that sort of crew on the train that takes it from point A to point B. The teams, those are the ones that get the trains ready to roll on the tracks, make sure the right cargoes, right manifests, all these things are on the tracks, wait. And then they have the maintenance repair operations, which apparently nobody shows up ever any day because supposedly all these rail cars are in need of repair, and that's why there's none, because there's so many thousands of rail cars that haven't been repaired and there's no repair crew, that they're sitting idle. Okay, that's the excuse given, but regardless, you would think that Union Pacific, if they had that many rail cars that needed to be fixed and they're turning away customers and cutting routes because they don't have enough rail cars, you would think that they would hire people to go fix them. And the whole thing about the COVID, well, they don't have the shots, they can't do this, they're coming in sick, there's hardly anybody working. But if I was a company president and worried about shareholders, I would be sure hiring hundreds, if not thousands of people to repair those cars on a short-term basis. And it's just baffling how they can't repair the cars, even though now they're losing 50% of their revenue because they're cutting that much away from their routes. Like, what is going on here? And that's what I was talking about last night on Coast to Coast AM. And somebody's a caller says, what degree exactly do you have about transportation, and what degree do you have about your agricultural background? I demand you tell me about. I was like, what in the hell was that all about? But anyway, you know, bringing up the railroads, it gets touchy because you got the unions in there. You got a lot of things that aren't supposed to be talked about in terms of the force majeure. And the way that, you know, railroads are calling force majeure, and they're just like, oh, we can't deliver. By the way, we can deliver again if you raise the rail rates 3x, and we'll make sure you get cars. And they're like, sure, whatever. So that's a naughty little secret happening right now, the force majeure in the railroads. And wherever you look, stuff's disappearing. So you're right. You know, this continuity government thing, they're telling you, oh, don't buy extra, don't panic buy, don't buy. They're putting like rail cars and full, you know, millions of containers underground. So you're right. If you were going to create the conditions for it, you know, another branch of that, if you will, would be we're going to take ourselves into this green movement, and we're going to absolutely, at least not myself, I don't like this idea, but a lot of people are going to go along with, let's turn ourselves back into serfs on purpose because of these green ideologies. And I could see it. Everything that's been pushed forward in the last, say, 4 or 5 years has been about us to reduce our own lifestyles on our own by making these choices for things that we shouldn't have to make choices for. Save the planet. Oh, you can't eat beef because somebody over on the other side of the world needs a carbon credit. So you're going to not eat beef. Like some of these things are so absurd, but they're getting everybody to try to pull back your own lifestyle on purpose to turn you into a serf on your own choosing. Again, that's your own volition. But then this time, right, Craig, it's being pushed really hard on the food shortages. And my assessment, and I'm just going to say it, once they choose to use the word rationing, and they've switched in the media to use that word now, that lexicon change from limit of one to rationed, is going to send a spiral of people buying extra. Now, it might not be super panic buy right this second, but moving forward, instead of going to the store and a family might buy 1 or 2, maybe, because they're going to go in and buy 3 across everywhere. Now, the supply chains are already really thin and not running properly. That's why you're getting the rotten onions. Now, can you imagine if people start buying double of what they normally do, or even triple on some items, and then the restocking and the reordering? Things are going to run out real quick. And then, the news might run with those stories. And then suddenly the mothers will go, oh no, there's even more ration. There's even more shortage there. I'm seeing it. And they're going to run off and buy even more. And there's going to be this, self-fulfilling, backfilling loop on that. So I think there's definitely something planned, and governments are trying to get, or have gotten what they need so far, create the chaos, because tell me about when you're going to leave somewhere and you're trying to create chaos on an Xville strategy.
Well, like here in Arizona, for instance, so I do have this, when I look at what's going on, it does seem that there's an attempt to create the most extreme impact, like the most damage possible. And when I look at, there's an article on Zero Hedge here today, Arizona's top water official, we're going to have to live with less water. And so there is, and it is Lake Powell. I'm sorry, I forget the damn name, but it is when you cross the Arizona border into Nevada, there is an amazing dam where we're getting power from, and also where water is coming from, is being diverted from. And following the U.S. Department of Interior's call to limit water deliveries from Lake Powell, Arizona's top water official warned of an impending water crisis that could affect the drinking water for millions of people. This is going to affect Californians, Nevadans, Arizonans. And he said, this is really getting to be a health and safety issue. The health and safety issue, the health and safety of those who want to turn on the tap and have water. Tom
That's for you. I'm sorry, Craig. That's for you bathing and using it in your home for cooking. What about agriculture?
Yeah, what about
animal husbandry? I mean, that's cut off. Your food supply is cut off. If you're going to get the water first in the cities, that means there's going to be none left for, this is what I'm hearing in California. They can't grow the crops to give to the cattle, so they're out there in other states looking to bring it in now.
Yeah, and if you drive across that, which I have done recently, if you drive, I've been doing it over the years, but I did it recently. I did it every year, probably at least once. You drive across that border, which basically you drive across the bridge, across the top of the dam, and you can get out and you can look, and you can, there's many pull-offs where you can see. If you look at Lake Powell, a person who's been following it for years, it will panic a person. It used to be grand, and now there's buoys on the ground just sitting there rusting, where it has receded. It is crazy. So that's the thing. We look at that, and even this character here, he said Arizona and other western states have until the end of the week to respond to an emergency request by federal government to delay water deliveries from the Colorado River, a move that would hopefully allow more water to flow into Lake Powell. So an official said, I never thought this day would come this quickly, but I think we always knew that this day was potentially out there. Well, the thing is, Lake Powell has been receding at a rapid rate for decades. And now, if you look at it, it's done. There's not much water in that thing. You're getting to the point where you're not even going to turn those turbines to make power. And the thing is, if you look at Arizona, the Phoenix area, they have been pumping people in here like you would not believe. The sleepy little town of Scottsdale, like the 6 years that I've been here, it's insane. And Phoenix is off the charts. And so the population density in a desert, which I will admit is a dumbass place to live, okay? It, I mean, if the power went out here in the middle of the summer, it would be mass. There'd be so many dead people. It's insane. And they are compressing people in here. I'm not even sure why people are coming here. I don't even know if they know why they're coming here. But like like we were saying, I think it's to maximize the impact of these natural cycles, to accelerate them to use to where you could say the globalists, you could say like the non-human evil is accelerating it to where they're getting this mass casualty events that they can control before things are truly out of control, you know, because Arizona, that Lake Powell between Arizona and Nevada. Anybody, if you want to like Google it, take a look at that, and look at where that water is supplied to, how many people depend on that, and then of course the power coming from there. And it wouldn't surprise me if this summer is the last of it, the way it looks to me, unless they do something. But what are they going to do? The population density where that water is required is just being pumped off the charts.
Well, think about it like the Klaus Schwab crew who says you'll own
Yeah.
nothing. Well, I'll absolve all of your debt across the entire state. You lost your house. We'll move you to a different place, and we will, absolve all of your debt so you have zero debt against any of the house that you can't sell, and you'll own nothing, and you'll be happy, and you'll live, and you'll have to rent from BlackRock somewhere else. And they might even give you a stipend for leaving on a central bank digital currency issuance, universal basic income. And that would be great because how many millions of people would take it? Their houses are underwater. They got no, not underwater in terms of water, but I mean financially underwater. And nothing grows. None of the systems work. There's no water delivered. So you have to leave. Literally becomes a ghost town. In the movies, when we saw tumbleweeds blowing through town in the 50s, those kind of tumbleweed movies of the Wild West, but on a massive scale of what you're talking about, the Scottsdale, like Phoenix, just empty out completely, and everybody takes financial loss on it. But there's the World Economic Forum to say we're going to absolve you of all your debt. You have no debt obligation on any of that, and we'll even put you in a new place in a new city area, your little cubicle, 640 square feet, and you will be happy.
Oh yeah. Well, 640 would be for a family of four. The individual gets 120. But anyway,
No,
yeah.
you just no.
The individual gets a little coffin, you know.
I
Um,
need 20 square feet just from a microgreen trays.
oh, well, you'll own nothing and like it. Yeah, you won't be growing those anymore. That's an act of terrorism. So, but yeah, so we are seeing these funny things, and that's the thing for you, for people who are aware. Like, yeah, follow the space weather and follow your body too. This is a great time to be happy, healthy, and wise, and definitely. I imagine I have a feeling that most people listening are probably pretty healthy and they're working on it. Well, it's a never-ending story. Keep on working on it. You can always be happier and healthier and wiser. And here's the thing: in the midst of all this disaster, now this is kind of my spiritual take on things, based a lot on the teachings of a guy named Neville. But here's the thing: the Earth plane, you could say like the 3D Earth plane, never changes. It goes from cataclysm to cataclysm, rise of civilizations, fall of civilizations, but ultimately it's a backdrop. It's always the same. It never really changes. It's just cyclical. It will be the same forever. It's never going to get better, people. It's going to be as it is forever. It will just have good times and bad times. So, but you as the individual creator, um, you being God, basically, you being your imagination as God itself. And so the thing is, you can manifest and create whatever you want. And so it doesn't matter what this background 3D Earth is doing. You can thrive and have a great time. You can be at peace in the midst of hell. And that's one thing, people just don't miss that one.
never going to get better. It's a cycle. We'll be back in 2 minutes, 2 seconds. David DuByne, Craig Simpson from Radiant Creators. See you back in just a couple minutes.
You're listening to Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com, and we'll be right back after this message.
This is Thomas, a.k.a. a Mad Painter. I'd like you to join me Monday nights, 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for Open Canvas. Don't forget to bring an open mind.
Yes, folks, that's right. Bring an open mind to an open canvas. Again, that is Monday nights, 10 p.m. Eastern. UFOs to government corruption. This is Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com. You don't need to expect us. We're already here.
Are you interested in the paranormal, murder mystery, real natural law? Do you enjoy interviews with amazing guests? Then join Crypt Rick every Monday night, 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, right here on Revolution Radio. Studio A, freedomslips.com. Crypt Rick's Hybrid Thinking. Welcome to the Crypt.
Join me at Revolution Radio, Studio B, at 11 a.m. on Saturday for Free Association, when we take a look at philosophy, spirituality, psychology, social issues, and geopolitics. It's every Saturday at 11 a.m. Eastern on Studio B at freedomslips.com.
Enter into a world unseen on Raven Star's Witching Hour. You will encounter eclectic topics from the realm of spirit brought into our matrix of truth. With your host, the Solaris Blue Raven. Solaris will bring you an array of unique guests covering topics from ghostly spirits to amazing anomalies, covert technology, UFOs, and shadowy global events.
And that's right here at Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, Saturdays, midnight till 2 a.m. Eastern Time. Revolution Radio, where information never sleeps.
Let the magic rise.
Galactic Interstellar Council on Revolution Radio Studio A, Fridays at 2 p.m. Eastern. Join us as we traverse the starseed paradigm, as expressed in the time-space continuum that we know as the divine expression of love and light. Integrating this conscious unity into the galactic paradigm. So welcome all, both terrestrial beings and galactic beings as one. So be it. You're listening to Revolution Radio.
Thank you for listening to Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com. Any commercial advertising you may hear in this program is of the sole discretion and benefit of the host of whose program you are listening to. Revolution Radio does not endorse any commercial products, nor does it accept monetary compensation for on-air advertising of commercial products, nor will it ever. We are and shall remain 100% listener supported. Any product advertising on this program are considered used at buyer risk, and Revolution Radio shall not be held liable for any claims or damages received from any product advertised within this program. Revolution Radio, where information never sleeps. All right. Thanks for listening while we take that short break here at Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com. And yeah, we're going to get back to your host.
And welcome back for the second hour of Mini Ice Age Conversations. I'm here tonight with Craig Simpson from Radiant Creators. I'm your host as well here, David DuByne, Revolution Radio Studio A every Thursday night, 10 p.m. to midnight. Lost some days in the week there. Listener supported. So, again, if you do believe in free speech or not have to get behind a paywall to listen to what we have to say, keep the running costs up, production costs, and support free speech. And we see a lot of people trying to get on the free speech, bring it back to life again with resuscitation. Now, to start the second hour here, think about your daily mantra as we move through all these changes here. So I've been writing one. I wrote this down a few days back. So, mantras or, affirmations or whatever you like to call it, things you tell yourself. And again, you're talking about that manifestation there, Craig. So how about this one? Thank you for the wealth, safety, and abundant blessings during this great transition. And think about that, what that encompasses in terms of, dealing with this vibrational change, the energetic flow. And I was trying to get a note here that I'd written down after I went to church, actually on Easter. I had a blast that came out of nowhere when I was trying to explain electromagnetic fields to myself. There was suddenly, when they say Father, Son, and Holy Ghost, and you got to think about the base layer of what is the electricity, or what is that base layer of energy that holds it all to allow other things to build off of it, the vibration, and then the sun, the frequency that changes. And again, that would be awareness with us. And then the Holy Ghost would be the ether that allows all of that to permeate through and construct into different elements here and molecules, whatnot, things in the third dimension. So this whole Father, Son, Holy Ghost, the vibration, the frequency, and the ether. Now, they were talking about a new creation beginning, and I was like, you know what? I agree totally, because if all those 3 points were changing, the cycle that we're entering right now, of course, is known by all occultists. It has to be. It's one of the greatest transitions and change in the last several thousand years. I was listening to somebody talking about the astrological alignments that a lot of these elitists are into, and they're, one is approaching here, and they're trying to get ready for it. So it would be a celebration if you're talking about 1,000-year cycles. Imagine even just the year from 1999 to the year 2000, just that very little thing for just humanity itself was the most amazing. We're crossing a 2,000-year period. Yeah. So imagine with the occultists when they're in it with, especially the energies lining up that only align once every 2,000 years or so, to take advantage of that in their spell binding or whatever they're doing to try to grab something of that energy flow that only occurs, like I say, once every 2,000 years, and then implement here on Earth. So those who are not aware of the energies are definitely not going to be partaking in what those can offer. Or maybe just innately you are, and it's just here, and people are just working through the soup, if you will. And then suddenly there has to be all these distractions, so you don't understand what that soup is. It's the ether change. I guess that'll start our second hour. What do you think there, Craig? Welcome back.
Oh, thank you. Well, I like your mantra, that's for sure. And what you're saying, it reminds me of, I think it's around, since we're doing some biblical talk here, it's around John 10:30, I think. It's depending on the version, the Bible you've got, it's either I and the Father are one, or I and my Father are one. But my Father is greater than me. So basically, it kind of translates like I and the Father are one, but the Father is greater than me. The idea is that, you are both the conceiver and the conceived. So, the conceiver would be greater than the conceived, but yet the conceived is the creator itself. So it's kind of eclectic, but along the lines of what you're saying, your imagination, your being, your consciousness is God. So you ultimately are honestly all powerful to create whatever state of being you want, whatever feeling you have in the world. You can create that. You can do that. So the thing is you can be at peace in the midst of hell. And that's really something for the people who are listening to this to really get, is that like you were saying, the Earth, 3D Earth, it's cyclical. It never really changes. And so, but the thing is, you do change, you do evolve. And so ultimately, when people talk about the ascension, they talk about, 5D Earth or 4D Earth or New Earth. Um, it's something that they feel. And the thing is, it's that this Earth is not going to do that. This is just a constant. It's a frequency. It's a range of ages, of cataclysms, basically. Uh, there's a great TV show. I think you'll find it on YouTube, actually, and it's called Fall of Civilizations. It's incredible. This guy, and he documents the fall of civilizations, and the Rome one is great, the Inca one is great. I mean, they're all amazing, and every civilization, from the first little like town that was built, was destined to fall one day. So we live in a cyclical existence. Um, but you could say you're
Don't
eternal.
tell the people that, Craig. They won't pay their taxes.
Exactly. It's like, it's true. You know, so that's the thing. It's really a big one for people to grasp right now. It's like, along with what David is saying. John 10:30. I am the Father of one, but the Father is greater than I. Ultimately, you're greater than yourself. You're the I am. You're the creator of it all. And so, in this cyclical Earth plane, 3D Earth, which is beautiful and wonderful. Every day there will be, birth and death, bliss and sorrow on this planet. And there'll be ice ages, and there'll be, cataclysms, and there'll be green pastures. It's all cyclical. That's not who you are. And that's one of the big things that people need to kind of get with, is that you're not here to fix it. You can't. The cycles will happen regardless. But what is for you to do is to really meditate on that I am consciousness, that God consciousness, because from that place you find your essential essence, and you can be at peace in the midst of hell. Even if we are going through the downside, well, ultimately, the difficult transit of ages, ultimately, we are, like the Kali Yuga. We're going into like the Kali Dwarpa now, I think it is.
Yeah, Dwapara Yuga. We're swinging out of the Kali Yuga to the Dwapara. A little bit lighter vibration every day is a little bit spiritually, vibrationally lighter, literally going up to the instant manifestation scale at the top of this cycle.
And we are hitting the instant manifestation scale. And the thing is, for those who focus on it, and I just recommend, like, if you're on Google, I'm sorry, if you're on YouTube, just search for Neville, and that's it. You'll find a ton of Neville Goddard stuff. His books are amazing. A guy named Brian Scott reads a lot of them. If you want to listen to them, they're free. You can listen to them, or you can buy them, whatever. And he's got tons of lectures where you can hear him in his own voice. So basically, for those who, and he taught this stuff back like in the black and white TV days. For those who focus on it, you can be such a powerful manifester that as things go to crap, as these ages change, because like anybody who follows astrology will know that one of the most difficult times is the transit time, is, the crossing of houses, is the actual transit, like as a planet, as a aspect is transiting in or out. That's when things get really rough. So we're now, I think, in that like transit between ages, and that's when it's the most difficult. Eventually we'll sort of like break that sound barrier, and it will just be like a rocket ship to Nirvana Pluto every day, But right now, not so much. This is the transit. This is that turbulence. This is that before you break the sound barrier and the plane's getting all bounced around. So, but as far as instant manifestation, I would just say, and I've proven it in my own life over and over again, and I continue, and I keep getting better at it. The energy is right. For those who simply want to focus on it, know you can do it, test it. It's done. You can do it. So that's one thing. In the midst of all this nonsense, in the midst of all this cataclysm, changing of ages, also the individual evolutionary leaps. You can now manifest whatever you need to live a plush existence. And one little like mantra I've got for myself, because I've just been thinking about even though it's a little bit mundane, people, money. And I've been kind of meditating on this and reciting this is I have a lavish, steady, dependable income consistent with integrity and mutual benefit. You know, that's one that I've been working on. Yeah, so really, I mean, have you had any kind of instant manifestations where you just think, oh, wouldn't that be nice? And the next thing you know, it just shows up?
Let me tell you a story.
Yes, hear it.
All right, out on my farm here, one night we saw a chicken just running in our yard, and we didn't have chickens at the time. It was a variety. It was like a heritage variety breed that's all black feathers, and when it moves in the sunlight, it has the teal that sheens off the feathers. It looks black at it, but then as soon as it moves, it sheens and it changes kind of like this, like bluish, like hologram almost. It's pretty interesting. And we saw it there, and the dogs were playing with it, and then it was right near sunset, and then boop, it disappeared, and it went up to roost somewhere. So we had the flashlight out, and we were looking around for it, and we couldn't find it anywhere. And I thought, all right, maybe it just ran home. But then and me and my wife, we were saying, oh, we need to go get some eggs today. Damn, oh, we forgot it. We passed one of our neighbor's house where we usually buy the eggs, and we're like, oh, we forgot to get the eggs. So we got home, we're like, man, do you really want to take another trip out to go get the eggs? And I was like, nah, not really. Let's just do something. And I forgot what we were going to do that day, but it was going back to get eggs was not really in the cards. So anyway, this chicken shows up the second day. Dogs start playing with it. And I went and picked it up. Like it was kind of like, get me away from these two dogs. I want to get picked up. And then I remembered after I got to see it up close, like the first days when it was just running around out in the front pasture there with the dogs, I couldn't really see it. It was just a black chicken. I didn't think anything of it. It was like a neighbor's that ran away. But then when I got it in my hand, it was that same kind of chicken that I had known my neighbor had because he showed me his flock and where they roost and how he built it out. He's got gigantic styles, like 18 birds back there. And the way he has these runs for them, and it's all gated in so the coyotes can't get in there. And it's like super well done, really incredibly well done. But anyway, I remember, and I called him. I said, Don, hey, I think I got one of your chickens over here. And apparently it had flown over the fence, and he couldn't find it for quite some days and thought the coyotes or something had gotten it. So I I called him. I said, hey, I think I got one of your chickens. So I brought it back there, and he says, hey, man, do you want any eggs? And we're like, no way, because we were going to go make a special trip to the store. And just by that act of finding his chicken and calling him and going out of my way to bring the chicken back to the house, he gave us 18 eggs. And that is an instant manifestation story. Really, within 20 minutes of going, man, we need to go get eggs. It's just, we got to drive all the way because we live quite far out. To drive to go get eggs is 20 minutes in one direction. And it's even in a small little, like tiny store. And suddenly, boom, there are 18 eggs in our hands less than 20 minutes later. So that is my story because we two of us were thinking of, oh, we need to go get eggs. We need eggs. We were both thinking of it just like a generalized, oh, we need to get eggs. We need to get eggs. And then they were delivered to us. So yes, I can verify that, but it wasn't a very like succinct wish, but, or like intention. It was just like, we need eggs. And sure enough, he takes good care of his chickens. But I mean, how crazy is that story?
No, it's perfect. And it reminds me of down south where they say, God helps those that get off their ass. And I thought it makes me think about how when you have the wish, you go, man, it sure be nice to get some eggs. And then you put foot to that prayer. You actually, okay, let's go get them. There's something about having this willingness to go do it, And I think part of that comes down to an expectation of knowing it's possible. Well, of course it's possible. You can go get them, right? So you have the wish, we want eggs. Then you get up, you're like, let's go get them. You have this absolute expectation of these eggs, like they're there. And then, like you're saying, instant manifestation. Here's some eggs. So that is something that is going to become the norm more and more as we move forward right now. And that's the thing where there is difficulty, but you really, no matter where a person is at, you have that power. You just need to get in touch with it and practice it a bit, and you'll find that put it to the test, and you'll find it. It's like that same character Neville I've mentioned. He said, the truth depends upon the intensity of imagination, not upon facts. You know, you're making all this up. You know what I mean? So it's your show. So manifest what you want. And if I don't think this sounds that out there to a lot of people who are probably listening, but if it does, Neville's a great place to start. Gosh, there's like Joe Dispenza, his amazing books, like Breaking the Habit of Being Who You Are and things like that. It is a spiritual technology that, like never before, is available to us, and use it. Use it. You know, it definitely works. Like David was just saying, there's an example. And the thing is, when you start getting in touch with it and using it and testing it, it will work so instantly and so well that you'll tell yourself, the rational mind will say, well, that would have happened anyway. You know, and I have found that I have to kind of keep proving it to myself, because the series, like the bridge of incidents that brings those eggs to you, just seems so natural that you go, well, that was going to happen anyway. But no, it wasn't. You created it. There you go.
Yeah, your imagination, like running through your head, is your movie playing of your future, right?
Yes.
It's just how, and I've had this happen many, 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 many times in my life too. You know, when I first didn't understand it, it was just like I would look through a book and I want to go travel here, and suddenly an opportunity would turn out of just something outrageous. You want to come down and work on a dive boat for a little while? Sure. And then, hey, do you want to go sailing for a bit? Oh yeah. And it would take you to this next place and the next place. And yeah, it's true. You know, then I look at some of these, you know, quadrillionaires or trillionaires, whatever, you know, whatever the largest wealth holders are, and like really at that point, once they get all the wealth, and what are their goals after that? You know, I mean, well, you can, okay, finance is one thing, and the happiness and the health, of course, and your safety, definitely. And then, you know, I'm curious what some of these billionaires, what I would like to look at their mantras or their intent for the day, you know, see what's going on up in their heads.
It'd be curious, wouldn't it? Yeah. Well, some definitely are fairly malicious, right? You've got some, but
they're all under the societies, the same secret society sort of stuff that understands these cycles and the onset date. Because you called it a transit, and I'm just going to call it the beginning entry into the cycle.
Yeah.
Which is going to be the most disruptive, by the way, because everything's been stable for so long, and we're coming 150 years of very solid stability in the weather patterns for planting and harvesting. And then suddenly we come into this thing where, it's totally out of sync and nothing's matching up anymore. And now what?
Yeah. Well, the billionaires of our time sort of become the billionaires as individuals. You could also say especially the tech companies, they become, well, the financial institutions, they become like the pharaohs of mediocrity, of the order, you know, because all of their wealth and their worldview is based on a system that's already gone. And that's one of the things that I think we're seeing, is that I do, mention the Ukraine a lot, but I do think that is like where, gosh, like the proxy war of the change of ages is happening to some extent, and you're seeing all of the deep state. You're seeing all of the empire, as I call it. They want something, and they're used to using methods. They're used to weaponized petrodollar. They're used to weaponized banking, bank fare, like warfare. They're used to getting what they want. It truly is kind of a Hunger Games reality. Well, the age is it's changing. The cycles are changing, and they're not getting it. And so they're using these methods of, violence-based, basically violence-backed fiat currency, the military might of a nation, truly deciding the value of its currency. I mean, all this ancient crap, they're throwing it all at Russia right now and the BRIC nations. And they're failing. And I have to admit, I look at it, and it even really, uh, it is a profound time to be alive and view what's happening, because yeah, the Kali Yuga, and then the Dwapara Yuga, as I call it, there's a battle happening. It's the same as in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna and Arjuna charging into the battle. You know, um, if you are a truth seeker, if you're listening to this, like, you're in the battle. There's just no way around it. You're on your chariot, you're charging into it, you're charging into that new age, and you're kind of looking over your shoulder, kind of to the side, and you're watching, like, the the fall and rise of empires on this planet. And in a sense, it's fine, because that will happen. The dust will settle, and then there'll be some prosperity and some border disputes, whatever. But the cycle will just go up and down, up and down. This will never change. But for those people, I think, really, who are ready to charge into that new age, you're going to find yourself on a different Earth, basically, like, literally, you can go to 4D, a 5D, an ascension, whatever. That's the exciting thing, is that I actually really, with especially the sun being so insane and unsettling your DNA, and we live in the ionosphere of the sun, in the huge toroidal magnetosphere of the sun. We live in it, and so our very souls are being affected. And so, it's a great time and this is a weird one. People kind of have to sit with this one, but let your country go. Let fixing it go. Let the earth go, because it doesn't have anything for you anymore. How does that sound?
I want to be in the Bitcoin Citadel.
I want to be in the Bitcoin Citadel. Well, maybe that's where we're going. Yes, maybe that's where we're going, But it's funny. Well, as we look at, like, the whole multiverse theory, which I think is very absolutely correct, you're just going to go into a future that has that. And so it may look like a series of incidents bring that to you, that you start to live in the, like, Tennessee, Bitcoin Citadel. All these massive changes happen, and it all just kind of works out, and you'll think, wow, this would have happened anyway. But it's because you were feeling that Bitcoin Citadel. It's because you were ready for that evolution. You were riding into that battle of the change of ages. So we're going to get there, whether it's this Earth or a different, Earth in the multiverse. Like, that's the weird thing about time. And here's the thing: have you noticed that, in a way, humanity's consciousness is getting ready for this? Because if you look at the movies that are coming out right now, movies are coming out again. A lot of them are about multiverse. There's one, I mean, a person may not be a moviegoer, and I'm not really a big moviegoer, but the thing is, there are some movies coming out, and that are out. Like, there's one, it's Doctor Strange, and it's a new Doctor Strange, like Doctor Strange 2. It's all about power, your power to walk through versions of the multiverse, versions of reality, consciously. And I'm thinking, like, this is a freaking, like, Marvel, whatever, superhero, like, movie. Like, this is how the universe really works. And here it is. It's like, let's just sit down in the classroom, take notes, because this is exactly what life is right now for those who are ready for it.
Yeah, the changes. I mean, I was, as you were talking there, I pulled up the Bitcoin Time Traveler post, explaining what the future was for back, and this is 2013 that this was written. But again, it says the dollar will not be used any longer. And talking about people seeking out places of safety, and having even just like a meager Bitcoin holdings would allow you to store your wealth. There would be no, no inflation in it, and holding even just a tenth of a Bitcoin would allow you to ride through this as things are hyperinflating. That BTC is going to hold just like a nugget of gold in the hand, and then what's supposed to be happening here in 2025, is a lot of it. If you were to just play it out from right now to 2025, it does seem plausible. I mean, the pricing is a little bit off now by a year, but who knows what would happen at the end of this year. I mean, sheesh, how much more money they're going to print, the war, the thing stoppage, the oil price going to $180 this next week, probably because they did sign the paperwork, I guess, today to cut all oil off from Russia, completely no oil going into Europe from Russia. So, I mean, watching these things play out as the fertilizer shortages hit, and the thing I talked about on Coast to Coast last night was this. The awareness timeline moving forward, and I think it's kind of important because this thing with the Bitcoin time traveler giving you these dates out to 2025 is more on a generalized scale of the biggest of movements in society that we'll see economically, societally, how people's minds will change as they go into the greatest depression ever in 10,000 years of that kind of depression economically, and anybody who even had like a tenth of a Bitcoin is suddenly a millionaire and vastly wealthy. You know, this kind of change in what perceived asset values are. And then we're stumbling into this thing head first here. So here was my timeline from last night on the Coast to Coast AM show. May, at the end of May, which is really next month, you're going to start to see a lot of news ping up about what was not planted, like the planting intention of the farmers, or if they're going to plant corn or they're going to plant bean. Once all these things are planted, past tense, at the end of May, you know, there's some places that do straggle into June, like the first week of June, but, you know, 80+% of the planting is done in America by the first day of June. But this year it's soggy, it's wet, corn maggots all over the place. What else they got? Outbreaks of slugs, you know, it's just, there's not enough herbicides or pesticides at the moment, which is the reason that we're starting to see crops lost even before they're planting. And when they get in with these problems that would be before slugs and you know, that sort of sand corn or the seed corn maggots, you could take care of that right now at the planting. But now without the herbicides or the pesticides, those things are allowed to run through the crop. So they're already going to lose a lot just before they're even planting. Well, anyway, when we come up to May, the farmers are going to state that they literally planted almost no corn because the fertilizer price is so high that they need to back off and plant beans or some other type of crop. Could be buckwheat, could be millet, sorghum. Well, sorghum is kind of like corn. It's a real heavy feeder, so I'll pull back on that and say something like buckwheat, really easy to grow. You just like throw it out and it grows, and it doesn't really require a lot. But the better you take care of it, the more it grows. So at the end of May, the first week of June, you're going to see the massive sweep of headlines across the planet talking about, oh my gosh, we are going into a massive corn shortage. Ukraine's offline. I think they're going to plant maximum 15% of all their acreage this year. That alone, with the world export market of corn, would disrupt everything we've known, and all functioning markets of physical delivery will no longer function in the middle of the summer, because corn will not physically be available. So you can't offer a contract because literally everybody's going to take delivery of it, because it's going to be so little of it around the planet that literally every kernel's going to be taken on a delivery contract. That's just from the Black Sea cutoff. And Russia export fertilizer being cut off, which is going to diminish yields further. So here's the long and the short of it. There's going to be a huge amount of beans and different kind of, you know, specialty crops grown because they don't use so much fertilizer. The corn is not going to be there. And when we go into this global corn shortage, and I'm talking a dearth, man, like literally just percentages of what's usually grown per year, that trace the chain of what corn's used for. I mean, if you trace it down to the very easiest things, feedlots, ethanol, and then we start to get into, you know, beyond animal feed and ethanol, we start to get into what's in supermarkets. Because you got to think about corn's almost in everything, from its corn starch, corn flour, corn meal, high fructose corn syrup. All that will be affected by this corn shortage. Now that will be the awareness of what's going to happen in May, at the end of May, into June, and prices are going to rocket, and 20% of the global populace will wake up and understand what's going on, which could push more shortage of people run out and buy stuff. And then we're going to come to the crop tours in the middle of the summer, like July, last weeks of July, first weeks of August. And when they get out there and they're looking with the binoculars as far as the eye can see, and there's nothing, or just barely scrapplings of emergence and nothing really took, that's going to send a shockwave through the markets, and then you're going to watch what you thought was absurd corn prices and unavailability just to pin the needle on that one. Right, at that point, it pins the needle because all businesses are aware of what's going on. And then obviously a lot more stories are going to make it in. So 50% of the global populace will be awake and aware to what I'm talking about and what Craig understands too about the timelines for this. No longer we are in the beginning of this cycle right now. And when it comes into harvest season 2022, October of this year, we're not talking like 5 years down the way. We're talking next month the awareness begins, and then October, which is just mere months away. Damn, we're already planning for Christmas. That's how close it is. It's closer than Christmas. It's closer than Thanksgiving. Reel it back a month and a half. And before you even get to those holidays, which you're already thinking about, it's Christmas coming. I've got to start thinking about getting stuff already. Middle of, next month we'll be talking Christmas. It's going to be here before that. That when they start to go into this harvest season and it's not going to be there, there's going to be 80% awareness globally, maybe even higher. And we're going to watch our civilization move to a place that hasn't moved to in thousands of years. Really, in thousands of years. To come into this type of food insecurity on a planet, I mean, you have to go back minimum 400 years, but that was more regional. We're talking like multiple years without a summer kind of thing. 535 AD, okay, still 1,500 years. But can you imagine how that's going to shake it to the core and what kind of distraction that's going to create for what you were talking about? Let's split 4D, 5D, different Earth. Forget this Earth. Okay, what if you had the option to do that, but you're locked in here for this little period of time in this transition also, but your physical body still needs to be here with food too, and all these distractions and all this fear, because it seems like fear is permeating the air. I can almost cut it with a knife. I can feel it everywhere. It's strange. This is the awareness that's going to be, and that is your timeline for anybody listening moving forward. The months of last week of May, first week of June, mark it on the calendar, look for that type of news, and then watch the prices spike. Like Craig, you said, or Fridays are usually the lowest price, and Mondays are the highest price on the Bitcoin trades. Well, same thing. Watch all the business news, and then watch the highs and the lows and the spikes and the off and the ons of the food pricing and the commodities exchanges. I think the world run on everything is going to start at that point, because I know people who watch the news, those 20% can drain a store or a supply chain pretty quickly with that, because it's going to be the people with more money. It's like the last of the people to get the message are going to be the poorest of the society that don't watch the business news, that don't watch the ag reports, that are just working, and they're busy working as a distraction. At the end of it, it's just they're going to go to the water cooler and somebody will say, hey, we're going to go on digital rationing cards tomorrow. And they'll be like, what? I can't even afford my food and heat my house. What do you mean digital rationing card? That'll be the trickle down of knowledge and awareness. But there's going to be a whole bunch of people with a whole bunch of resources to get to it first. So then you can see why this police state perhaps has been set up since 9/11. Because think about it, if you've seen the slow trickling of the police state, well, look, it's an asset in play right now to prevent the chaos that's going to ensue. But it took 20 years to slowly build it up, matching lockstep with the same cycle. Just saying. But that's your timeline. So, hey, everybody have a great year. Happy 2023. Come on.
Yeah, best year ever. Well, it definitely can be. Civilizations have risen and they have fallen, forever. So, one thing about not being in the fear, you mentioned how they crank the fear up. If you have a way of escaping that fear, and I would say that it's different for every individual. Now, I mean, it can be hiking in the woods, it can be hiking in the desert, it can be, breathing exercises, it can be meditation, it can be prayer. Whatever works for you, whatever methodology, it could be a mix of a few things. It can be ultimately manifesting what you want. There's so much out there. But the thing is that we do need to escape that fear, because when you're not, so intuition only exists in a body let's say, an energy body, either the etheric body, the physical body, uh, it only exists there when there's no fear. So when there's fear, intuition just does not exist. And that's where you kind of get like the reptilian brain stem reaction. That's where you get like fight, flight, fear, and reproduction. Very, very basic programming. So fear is incredibly bad for us in that all we can do is think instinctively like a reptile. In fact, we can't even think, we can simply react. And that's not a good thing. So fear, um, if one studies just the mundane brain, basically you realize that fear, not good. You can't think when you're in fear. Um, we have these kind of ancient features in our brain that we've evolved that, if you are walking and you trip, you don't think about putting your hands out to catch yourself. Your brain does it for you. And that's kind of fight or flight reflexes. And so when you're fearful, you're literally in that state, and it's just not good for the body. It's not a good thing. Well, intuition does not exist there. So really, whatever methodology an individual has, um, it needs to, you need to have some time every day, and the more the better. The whole day is the best, it helps you sleep better. But if you can get outside of that fear, and for me, meditation is a big one. Manifesting is a big one. Feeling the states that I want to that I want to walk into, that aspect of the multiverse that I want to walk into and create. Um, Breathing exercises, time in nature. There's a lot of it. There's a lot that I do to intense physical exercise, even shooting, going out to the range and going out in the desert and shooting steel plates at different distances. I paint them blue, put a little UN emblem on them. And and basically, you know, you there has to be a method that a person has to if you feel like you're achieving what you need to be successful every day, it really helps to mitigate fear. And so all those practices, if you're doing that, then you're going to have intuition, and then you're going to be ahead of the game. You're always going to be ahead. It could be 2 weeks, it could be a year, it could be hours, but you're always going to be ahead of the herd that panics, if you know what I mean. So I would say that right now, cultivating intuition, which means, finding a state where you're not in fear, is essential. And if a person can manage 20 minutes without fear a day, that's a good start. 5 minutes, good start. You just need a disciplined schedule that if you achieve it, even 50%, you realize you spent some of that day outside of fear, and that's where you can manifest, and that's where you can think, and that's where you really do, connect to that future where you thrive, where you're at peace in the midst of hell. Because I think that really, I agree with what you're saying. Um, I don't even understand how they're doing it, but the fear is being cranked out to the point where it is debilitating people. And I watch people right now, and of course, it started back in the COVID situation. I mean, it started, you could even say decades before then, but it's been exponential. And so I would just say that, especially since 2020, um, you can even say the 70s, but let's just say 2020, people are offline. They're physically and spiritually offline. And they're just waiting for the universal basic income in Klaus Schwab to come save them. And I'm amazed at how many people I talk to who they don't even know there's a conflict going on in Ukraine. Like they don't even know that hyperinflation is taking place. Like Germany's already seen like 30 to 50% hyperinflation, and that's definitely coming here.
Yeah, I saw their CPI numbers today were 30% month on month. It was a year upon. It was a 1 year increase from March of last year, 30% in Germany, above 30% in a single year.
Yeah, it's actually even more so than like in like 46 to 49, like after World War II for Germany. The hyper, it's like,
Yeah, they did. No, that's just for the CPI. That's not for the average person on the street. That's just what what they're paying across. I was thinking it was the producer index. That was last week. It was also above 20%.
Yeah, it's massive. Yeah,
Yeah, it's massive. That's a producer on it. And then now they're saying with the actual consumer, it's above 30. So, I mean, definitely it seems that whatever the producers are paying more for, it seems there's a one third increase in the consumer pricing at that point, at least.
Yeah, and so that's the thing. That's the 3D Earth we have. That's like the cyclical background that we have that will just go on forever. These disasters, then it works out, disaster works out, whatever, golden age, iron age, whatever. Um, so really, this is a time where people have to cultivate that intuition, and that'll do a lot for you. So, wow, isn't that funny? But in the midst of all this craziness, I would say that like my most practical advice for people is dollar cost average Bitcoin and meditate. That's what's going to save your ass. And it wouldn't hurt to be living on a ranch, actually, that's somewhat rural, and actually having your chickens and your goats and growing your own food to a great extent, the greatest extent you can, you know. But I realize that's not an option for everybody. But if you can visualize and you can feel that state, you will find yourself there because you have that power at this time. It's funny, but it's sort of like isn't that somewhere that's biblical? Like you would never be given a task that you didn't have the resources to achieve. And I forget where that actually is, but it's true. If you know you should be there, if you know you shouldn't be living in like a blue murder zone, if you know you shouldn't be living in, so close to a city, you should be living somewhat rural. If you know that, feel it, visualize it. What does it mean to you? Feel it, go to sleep thinking about it, spend some time, meditate on it, be there, and then be surprised when you snap back and you're not there yet. And the next thing you know, a series of incidents will take you to the place you need to be, and you won't be worrying about how you're going to deal with this crap in a city. You're going to be dealing with like your problems are going to be like, we have too damn many eggs. We got to go find David DuByne and give him some eggs.
Well, if your power is intentional and focused, I guess anything could be. Yeah, more BTC gains, more BTC gains, more BTC gains.
Yeah. Well, that's one, when we talk about crypto, that's one thing I'd really recommend to people right now is, if your dollar cost, everyone has a different approach to crypto, and that's really tough because everyone's doing different stuff. If you're dollar cost averaging, that's kind of like the easiest entry level way to, accrue some Bitcoin wealth. But along with that, I thought I'd throw it out there is be wary of keeping it on exchanges. So here's just a little tip I'd give, a crypto tip to people is, okay, so if you're doing your weekly buy of Bitcoin, let's say on Coinbase, or you're going on wherever, or maybe you've just bought your big chunk or whatever, however you want to go about it, definitely get a hardware wallet. You can get a Ledger or a Trezor, or even if you have a software wallet on your computer, like I don't really want to recommend any, but there are software, wallets you can get for your computer, for your phone. But ultimately, the best are hardware wallets, and the two that kind of lead the pack are Ledger and Trezor. And so, if you have one of those, the hard thing is I kind of consider them a bit of an advanced skill. But if you install it and you write your seed phrase down, don't screenshot it or anything like that. You write your seed phrase down, you make a copy of that on an old copy machine or just write it out again. And then you practice restoring the wallet, as a new wallet with your old seed phrase. And then experiment with sending a little bit of Bitcoin over there. And then once you have that confidence that all is good, send some more over there. Don't stress yourself out, but realize that especially, and everybody start following space weather. But along with that, if we do have a cyber attack, the internet has problems, or there was an X-class flare that caused grid trouble, or just many, many things, I would at least keep 1% of your Bitcoin and your cryptos on a hardware wallet, because that way it's yours and it cannot be taken, because ultimately what is on the exchanges is not really yours ultimately. I mean, it has a pointer to you. In general, you should be fine. But it's sort of like when you put money in the bank, you might give them paper dollars, you might give them a gold bar, but now you no longer have that. You know what I mean? And so, for those who are collecting Bitcoin or other cryptos, definitely at least take a percentage of that and put it on a hardware wallet so that the nice thing with a hardware wallet is nobody else can get to it. It's yours. No one can take it. No one can confiscate it. Um, and what's on exchanges, that can happen. And with that said, uh, do that. So get yourself a Trezor, get yourself a Ledger, and take some, or even a software wallet that works on your computer. That really is actually very, very good if that works for you. But back it up, have your seed phrase, practice restoring it, get that confidence, move a little bit of crypto to it, then move a little bit more once you know it works, send from it, feel good and comfortable with it. I myself don't keep all my money in any one place. I keep it on several hardware devices and exchanges and then interest-bearing crypto wallets and everything else. So it's not all in one spot. But if we do have a situation where there's no power or there's government overreach, uh, having crypto on a hardware wallet will be very, very effective. And the nice thing is, you don't even care about the hardware wallet. You don't even care about an EMP or a great big solar flare. If you have that seed phrase to restore the wallet backed up, eventually you can get to it and you're good. There's people who actually will stamp that seed phrase. It's like 12 to 24 words on a steel like a metal card, so that it's good to go. And for heaven's sakes, keep it in more than one place. And with that said,
Yeah, what are you really? So you think the new pillars of the economy would definitely be crypto? Okay, so Bitcoin's one. There's going to be a few others there, a list of them. But what else do you think? Gold and silver, obviously. Now, what do you think about the carbon credits market right now?
Yeah, I really don't follow the carbon credits market. I don't know. I think that definitely that's going to be good. I mean, there's carbon credits. Also, here's one too. It's food tracking. Gosh, what's that? There is a PNY, Pony, or like phony they call it, which is it's PNY. That's a ticker. One can look that one up. It's about food tracking, and then gosh, what's the other one? I forget. There's another one that does
There's
it very
Moss,
well.
that one.
Yes, I mean like food tracking. I know that it has pros and cons to it, but what tracks food from seed to table ultimately, those projects. VChain. VChain is one that's doing that and doing it very well. You'll actually find some
VChain.
VChain. You'll find that on wine bottles. You'll find a QR code. Some wineries are doing it, and you can scan that. You can see where the grapes have come from and everything else like that. And so, food tracking. I know it has some negative connotations, but ultimately that I think all those chains, like a PNY, VChain, those are really up and coming. I don't know the carbon credits one as well. Bitcoin's always good. Dash is very good because well, obviously people can do their own research on that one, but I would just say that Dash has been in collapsed economies. It has been a proven crypto to actually be able to be where you can do transactions via text. Because that may exist when the internet does not in some cases. So yeah, and one thing about gold and silver are great. I mean, and if you have it, good, great. I myself, my favorite thing is golden eagles. Silver rounds, as they say, dollar rounds. They're about $25 right now. If you got $100 or however many, I always recommend just buying these things weekly. If you're buying some Bitcoin weekly, you're buying some silver weekly. That's really great. Those can prove to be very profitable in a bad situation. Silver has a lot more. It's sort of like imagine gold as Bitcoin. Its variance is quite slight, where like silver is like Ethereum, where the variance, the gains and losses are much greater. So I think definitely in a situation where we were going back to metals for currency, then probably silver is going to get you more gains. And then also there are gold-based stable coins, which at this point, honestly, the ruble, if you can get your hands on some rubles, just do it. All right. But other than that, there's
They'll make it
Pax.
illegal to own the money. You'll go to prison for having a physical ruble in your hand.
Yeah, you probably will. You probably will.
Those will be gold notes in the future.
Yeah, I know. Like that, that's like an instant, yeah, that may not work out so well for people. So be careful. But PAXG is a good one. It's PAXG. PAXG. That is a gold-backed stablecoin. And it's a pretty good project. I mean, nothing's perfect. Always hedge your bets, but if you wanted to buy gold today, you certainly can buy paper gold, but also a gold-backed stablecoin is pretty effective. I myself like it. Sometimes
Where's their vaulting though? See, then it brings in, can a government come in and confiscate that gold, and then suddenly what did have value is the gold back. Well, then the gold got stolen by a government.
Yes, it could happen. It could definitely happen because they have to have the gold to actually have a gold-backed stablecoin, of course. So there's a risk there. Like nothing really beats silver and gold physically. So that's like the best thing, I do like PAXG because sometimes when I see gold making moves, I'll just buy that because it's easy and it's easy to trade. And sometimes when Bitcoin is weak and gold is strong, you can make that trade. You can buy PAXG with Bitcoin. It's a way to make some more Bitcoin, but it's definitely a difficult trade. I'd be careful with that one. Another one.
Sounds like you've dipped your toe in the water there of the inverse of those two.
Yeah, I have. The PAXG chart and the Bitcoin chart are exactly opposites of one another. And so if Bitcoin is dumping, you can get into some PAXG, you can make some serious Bitcoin. But it's expert level stuff, man. It's difficult.
Yeah, you gotta have the super fast mouse for that one. Oops.
Yeah.
What does that red color mean?
Yeah. It's a good way to get your ass handed to you. It really is.
No, it's not. And nor is paying taxes.
Yeah,
I had my CPA telling me, "Oh, it's good to pay taxes once in a while," and I'm like, "Ooh, no, no.
You're like whatever.
You're fired."
Yeah, you're fired. Yeah, I know. Really. Most tax people will say that like exemptions are the meaning of life. What are you talking about? And here's one for you.
I never heard that before.
Exceptions are the meaning of life. They are.
Bitcoin Citadel, where are you, man?
Yeah, exemptions are the meaning. Like we are the exemption. Yeah, that'd be a great tagline for it, wouldn't it? Bitcoin Sentinel. We are the meaning of life. And here's one for you. And also, one thing about having some Bitcoin, some of your crypto, even stable coins, USDC, USDT, on a hardware device. And this is just what I do. So it's kind of a recommendation, but it's what I do. Have more than one. Have a Trezor, have a Ledger. Don't have it in one place. Have it in a software wallet too. Have it on exchanges. Have it in interest-bearing, things like Celsius and Celsius kind of doesn't work now. But
what happened to Celsius? Did that get in some trouble too for the lending?
Celsius does still work. Here's the thing: there's Celsius, and then there's the other one. There's oh gosh, the other big one. Crap, I forget what it's called. It'll come to me. They're still okay. Celsius, if you have money in Celsius, you're fine. If you have, stable coin or Bitcoin, whatever, crypto, you're good. But now to add money to your account or to start an account with Celsius, you have to be an accredited investor, which means you have to have a $250,000.
No, they're not pulling that one, are they?
They are,
only
yeah.
The investors can get interest-bearing
Yes.
saving, like safe haven saving areas.
Yeah, and it sucks because, gosh, what's the other one called? I just forget the name of it. But I won't belabor it. There's another one that's really big, and it hasn't happened to them yet. But the thing with Celsius, if you have your money in there, you're good. But now if you're an American citizen, anywhere else in the world, you're fine. But if you're an American citizen, you have to be an accredited investor to add more funds. And once you take funds off, you cannot put them back on unless you're an accredited investor. So if you have money there and you're not an accredited investor, Just park it. You're good. You're making nice interest. So, and,
Oh, wait, like regular American bank account, even a high performing is 0.5%. And then these guys are allowed to come in and get 6%. I'm like, what? Come on.
On Bitcoin. Yeah.
Follow the money. David DuByne, Rick Simpson, Radio Creator Ministry. Check out his work, podcast, website, and YouTube channel. See you next week. Thanks for listening.
Thank you for listening to Revolution Radio.